Hello, my name is Bill Schutz. I'm an instructional designer. I excel at helping teams to learn complex tasks. Today, I'm going to give a walkthrough of a course that I recently developed called How to Thrive when Using Test-Driven Development. The walkthrough is intended for learning and development professionals. The course is designed for intermediate programmers seeking to improve their capabilities. So, let's jump into the walkthrough. This is How to Thrive when Using Test-Driven Development by Bill Schutz. First, I'd like to describe the problem that the course attempts to solve. Feedback from programmers that have attempted test-driven development often sounds something like this. They say, "I don't know where to start," or they try it after a little while and they say, "I just get stuck." So those are very common responses that motivate the need for a course such as this. So let's look a little more deeply into the purpose of the course. We've described the problem, but now let's describe the solution. So as we've said, it's very common for many programmers to struggle with test-driven development, and especially undergraduate computer science students. So this course attempts to assist learners to gradually build the skills and competencies. One of the primary focuses for the course is to build sufficient scaffolding so that the learners feel supported as they're working toward the goals. We've attempted to give an authentic environment, but also we want to provide motivation and give a clear path so the learners can grow into those performers that they want to become. In terms of instructional design, the course is supported by one particular learning theory and then 2 instructional design processes. So let's go through the theory and processes at this point. A theory that fits very, very nicely to programming tasks has been developed by Kolb. The programming could be thought of as having a concrete experience, the doing. After the doing, students are encouraged to investigate various avenues. That would be the active experimentation phase. And very, very common in programming is to take those ideas and move them onto an abstract level. And then finally, the yellow bubble refers to reflective observation. And we'll talk a little more about it, but this is an online course. So we're going to encourage reflection along the way through written tasks to allow students to think more deeply about some of the concepts that they've experienced in coding. So as we move from learning theory, let's look at a couple of instructional design processes that can help. The 4C in the 4CID simply stands for 4 components of instructional design, and although a list of 10 steps is formulated in the source from 2021, the bold steps offer the 4 C's of the instructional design. It's a method of starting with the learning tasks and breaking down complex tasks into simpler tasks. Very nice instructional design process for teaching programming topics. The final instructional design process that we'll discuss is called MARC, appropriately for more authentic, reflective, or collaborative. Taking the normal process and adding cycles of reflection and cycles of collaboration with other learners, as well as stages of authenticity, such as real-world problems for applying the programming practices. So before we move from theory to practice, I wanted to provide the sources. Here is a listing of the sources. On the YouTube channel and in the video description, links will be provided to the instructional design document as well as the instructor's job aid. So before we move on, I just wanted to highlight the design document itself. All of the material that underpins the course was clearly documented from the start, following a traditional design model of analysis and design prior to development and implementation. So this document will take learning professionals through that process. Next, I'd like to talk about goals and objectives as they are stated in the instructional design document. For easy reference, there is a separate link to the course and module level objectives, which is provided in the instructor job aid in order to give quick reference. This page gives the examples of the module level objectives that are put into the course and arranged in the modules 1, 2, and 3 of the course. This is the Canvas LMS, the learning environment. This example shows Module 3. The modules have learning objectives, then offer materials to support the learning, and then go through a series of activities. Next, I'd like to show an example of some of the activities in the course. This particular example takes the learner through drawing a UML sequence diagram. So to provide sufficient scaffolding, the example code is provided in the assignment details. The grading criteria is clearly provided at the bottom of the assignment details. So in this case, 10 points is awarded for having the correct instances on the UML sequence diagram, and then 40 points will be available for the correct method calls being depicted. So this is a good place to show some of the extra material that is provided to the instructors of the course. So this simply shows a visualization of the interaction between a component referred to as the price server and a separate component known as a web communicator. In terms of supporting content, each module in the learning materials links to RISE 360 created web content where students can see code examples and demonstrations. And then we also provide these highlights in the instructor job aid. So Figure 1 shows the learner challenge presented within Module 2 of the web content as an example. In terms of learning assessments, we saw a bit of this earlier with the UML sequence diagram. This gives the rubric associated with 4 specific activities. It indicates the amount of time that learners are expected to participate in the activities and also indicates the points and the criteria for assigning those points. Once again, this is in the instructor job aid and gives it in summary form to help the instructor understand the assessment of the learners. For environment, we have already talked about the environment for the learners, which would be their PCs or tablets or mobile phones where they can use the Canvas learning management system. And we've talked about accessing the web to access support materials. The course is developed in the programming language C#, and it's recommended to use the integrated development environment called Visual Studio Community Edition. Additional materials relating to the course. In this case, I will show an example from the instructor job aid. There is a quick summary of all of the learning materials that are presented to the students in the modules of the course. In terms of resources, there is a separate online guide referred to as the instructor guide, which is referenced in the job aid. And that provides a detailed walkthrough so that instructors would be able to support the learners, especially if some of the programming exercises get more challenging as the course progresses. In addition, another supporting material is the structure of the course itself. And in the job aid for the instructor, each module has a looking ahead section and indicates to the instructor the concepts within the module that will be helpful to the students as they progress through the material in subsequent modules. I've said a lot about it already, but just to close the loop, here is the instructor's job aid. What's showing in the instructor's job aid is tips and tricks, helping the instructor to engage the learners to describe the real-world project. In this case, it's going to the website of a mutual fund company and manually using their price history search tool. And then the students will work through the course to actually implement this into code to automate retrieval of price history of mutual funds. Last but not least, I'd like to describe the course evaluation. There is a link to a Google form which allow the learners to describe if they have successfully achieved the objectives of the course. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the course.